Here I am holding a picture by my grandfather, by S.J. Peploe. It's a late picture of the Rothiemurcus of the ancient Caledonian forest. And perhaps not everybody would instantly know who it's by. I obviously do because I own it, but also it's like handwriting. You recognise an artist's style. You don't need to look at the signature, you don't need to look at the back. But the signature is important. If a picture isn't signed, well, where do you go from there? How do you establish that something is genuine, what it says it is? This is an important question because it feeds into territory of provenance, in the sense the history of a picture. And the second thing that I always do when I look at a picture in terms of assessing its provenance and what it might be, is you look at the back. And on the back, you might hope to see some labels, some hard information, some primary source material, if you like, to back up your assumption that a picture is genuine. With this picture, happily, it has a number of labels on the back, and I'm going to turn it round so that we can have a look at the back of the picture and see what we can find out. Well, there's a lot of labels. It's a picture that's obviously had a history. The most prominent on the top is perhaps the least interesting. It just says glass. And this is a warning to anyone that might be transporting the picture that it is vulnerable, that it is glazed. You have a picture here, a label here, which is an Aiken Dot and Son Scottish Gallery framing label. Now, we get a lot of inquiries, obviously, from people that have this framing label on the back of their picture. And we have to explain that, unfortunately, we haven't retained the framing records, and it doesn't actually provide any provenance, except that at one stage, the frame was made by the Scottish Gallery. And there's a unique 4-digit reference number prefaced by a letter. Here we see K1135. And obviously we went through the alphabet starting at A0001 to Z9999. You can imagine if you're mathematically minded, you can work out how many framing jobs that represents going through the alphabet even once. Beyond that, we have lots of other labels. Here, a picture basically saying, pictures with care, Mrs. S.J. Peploe, care of Aiken Dot, 26 South Castle Street, and then actually the address completing the label of Reed and Lefebvre in London. So this picture belongs to an era where the Scottish Gallery, Aiken Dot, and Reed and Lefebvre had a joint relationship with the artist. Works were bought directly from the artist from the mid-1920s until the early 1930s. And because it says Alex Reed and Lefebvre, we know they've combined Alexander Reed, the firm of Alexander Reed, originally in Glasgow, was combined with the Lefebvre Gallery, so it means it's after 1926, hard information. Beyond that, you have this label here, which is actually a Reed and Lefebvre's stock number, from which you can learn something. And then you have two further labels here and here. Now these are basically family history labels, the earlier one of which is signed by my grandmother, by Margaret Peploe, and it's the family address, 13 India Street in Edinburgh, April 1944. This picture belongs to my son Dennis, signed Margaret Peploe. So when the family pictures were divided between my uncle Willie and my father Dennis, this label was put on the back. Much later, in 1969, February, my father gifted pictures to my mother, and again, this is all for inheritance tax purposes, and that's his label there, signed by Dennis, signed by I, Dennis F. and Peploe, etc., signed by my mother, Elizabeth. So all these labels add up to something being irrefutably genuine, and then obviously it's much more fun to go back to the original picture and appreciate it as a wonderful late example of the work of Samuel John Peploe.